You are listening to the Way of the Shaman podcast with your host, Carrie Hoosman. The content shared in the Way of the Shaman podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional or therapeutic advice. The views expressed by the host and interviewees reflect their personal experiences and opinions. Please consult with an appropriate licensed professional if you have any medical, psychological, or legal concerns.
Hello, and welcome to the Way of the Shaman podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Hoosman, and today Antoinette Cresci de la Torre is joining us from the Bay Area where she teaches. Welcome, Antoinette.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I'm so excited. We get to hear about Antoinette's practice because she's a body worker, an energy worker, and a shamanic healer, in addition to a faculty member. But first, I'd like to hear a little bit, Antoinette, about how shamanism found you.
Ooh, how shamanism found me. I would say how the spirits found me. When I was a kid, I was really sensitive to spirits, and my mom used to tell me it was my what did she say? My angels
Mm-hmm.
trying to contact me. Um, and then I shut it down in my teenage years, so yeah, it was hard a little. It was a little hard when I was a kid because I was also very vocal. So I would say what I was sensing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and going to a Catholic school, that was kind of a bit of a no-no. I actually got F's in religion because I was so vocal. Anyway,
The
that's
good
for
thing is
another time.
at least you were supported at home. Your mom recognized that that was your angels. And so are there
Yeah.
others in your family who are also sensitive?
My sister is extremely sensitive. Yeah. She knows when people are going to die, which is really
Mm,
a difficult gift to have.
true.
Um, but so I shut it down, and then later in my 30s, the spirits started showing up again. Um, and I just started doing a lot of reading, mostly about Native American culture, because I don't know why, probably because I'm on that land. But it wasn't until actually my late 30s, early 40s, when I started doing massage,
Okay.
that the spirits really started showing up. I had a power animal that at the time I didn't know was a power animal that would show up every time I did a massage. And he was kind of like my pet. I named him, and he was always there. He could give me information, tell me things that were going on, but he only showed up then. And I think it's because of being in that quiet space and just
Mm-hmm.
being in tune.
Sure.
Um, then I started doing Reiki, which is
Mm-hmm.
a form of energy healing. That was this was the progression of things. And then the spirits really started showing up more strongly. But I wasn't really interested in using it. Not that I wasn't interested, I didn't know what to do with it.
Fair.
I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what it meant for me. And so I tried to push it away.
And in Reiki
Uh,
training, were you taught anything about how to really communicate or interact with the helping spirits that would work with you in that higher level Reiki work?
Not in a way that you're trained in shamanic counseling. I mean, shamanic healing and just
Mm-hmm.
shamanic work. Not in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but fast forward a few years, and I had a couple of accidents. I had a head injury, and then I had a car accident where I actually ran myself over with my own car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty traumatic. And I knew the second it happened that it was the proverbial 2x4. I was
Ah,
getting whacked with a 2x4 and I knew that it was because I wasn't listening to something, but I didn't have the skills to understand exactly what it was I was being told or by who. So 6 months after that, I was at we have these crystal fairs in the Bay Area. There's
mhm,
a local guy that he puts it on a couple times a year in a couple different areas. And um, vendors come and they don't just sell crystals. There's, mediums and energy
mhm.
healers and quantum healers and all kinds of metaphysical type people show up. And I had gone with a friend, and my friend was having a reading, and it was the end of the day. I was out of money and I was just waiting for her. And
Yeah.
this gentleman across the way says to me, "Hey, do you want to sit in my chair?" No, first he asked me, "Do you want a reading?" And I said, "No, no, I don't have any money left. No, thank you." He says, "Okay, well, you can sit in my chair because I'm not busy while you wait for your friend." So I sat in the chair and he's sitting there. I'm noticing him and he's really squirming in his seat, and he's looking and he's squirming. And finally he said, "Okay, um, I have information and they're telling me I have to tell you. So do you want a free reading?" And I said, "Okay, sure. I'll take the free reading." So the first thing he said was Sicilian, but not Sicilian. And on my father's side of the family, we're Sicilian. And I said, "Yes. My family came from Sicily." And he says, "Do you know what a midwife is?" And I said, "Well, in an ancient sense or a modern sense?" And he says, "An ancient sense." And I said, "Well, it's a healer or a medicine woman, or,
Mhm.
someone that works with spirits and does healing." He says, "Yes, you come from a long line." And I'm like, just sitting there looking at him like, okay. What I'm thinking is, how did he know I was Sicilian? That was what I was thinking. And I said, "Okay." He says, "They tell me you're not listening." And I said, "Listening to what?" And then he goes, "They are saying that the car is just the beginning if you don't start listening." And I was like, I felt like I got hit again. Like,
Mhm.
and I started to cry. And he says, "Does that mean something to you?" And I said, "Well, I ran myself over with my car 6 months ago. I've been in physical therapy for the last 6 months." And he said, "Yeah, you're not listening and they're trying to get your attention and you're not getting it." And I was like, "Okay, well, I don't know what to get." And he said, "Well, you need to step into your shoes. You're you're there, but you keep pushing it away." So I thanked him. I went home. I felt a little bit traumatized. Actually, I felt a lot traumatized. My face was numb driving home. I just
Wow.
didn't know what to make of this. So the very next day, I'm cleaning out a bookshelf and The Way of the Shaman falls on the floor. So this was in the early 2000s. I bought Way of the Shaman in the early 90s. And I had tried to read it, but I wasn't really a big fan of Michael's writing. And I kept putting it down. I couldn't get through it.
Mhm.
So I look at the book and I'm thinking, all right, now's the time to read it. I'm listening. I hear you. So I sat down and I never finished cleaning my bookshelf. I read the book in a day
So
and
this time it was no problem reading his style,
I
everything else, it
couldn't,
just clicked.
I already knew it. I already knew it. Some of the techniques I was using, not ethically, obviously, after getting through all of my shamanic workshops and training through the foundation and learning what I learned about ethics. But I was already using some of the practices. It was just wild.
Wow.
So I go online and I search Michael Harner to see if I can learn more. And I found Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get a healing. I'm going to start with getting a healing. So I contact someone on the website who I found who's in Mill Valley, which is across the Golden Gate Bridge from where I lived. It's like
Mhm.
maybe 45 minutes away. So I go to the appointment, and the woman, who's very sweet, says to me, "Oh, you misunderstood, honey. I don't do shamanic healing. I do shamanic counseling." It was Sandra Harner, Michael's wife. And I still didn't know this. Even at the first meeting, I still didn't know this. And I said, "Okay, well, I chose you for some reason, so I'm not getting a healing. I'm going to do whatever it is we're doing." And she goes, "Well, you don't understand. This isn't one time. This is 5 times. It's a time commitment and a financial commitment." And so I did it, and I ended up actually working with her for a little over a year before I took my first workshop. And the interesting thing is, again, I started knowing things before I knew they were a thing.
Mhm.
One of my last sessions with her before I took the basic, my sister had asked me for help. And so I did a journey and I asked my helping spirits how to help her. And they taught me how to do a power animal retrieval and a soul retrieval and an extraction, all in that one journey. And I did
Wow.
it. And I went back to Sandra and I told her about it. And she's just like, "I think it's time that you start taking workshops." And they taught me exactly the way the foundation teaches it. Like, exactly.
Mhm.
And that's how it all began.
Beautiful. You couldn't have made that up if you tried. So
I know.
so now you have a practice. So you are a body worker, you're an energy healer, you're a shamanic healer in your practice. So
Mhm.
people come to you for any of those things. They're all separate and all a little bit different. How is
Yeah.
it decided that this is what someone needs today? Do they come in saying, I'm really carrying something in my heart. Can you determine what the best thing is to work on this? Or do you journey to your helping spirits to find out what they need? How does that work?
So usually they come in knowing what they want. Like,
Uh-huh.
well, massage aside, I want Reiki or I want a shamanic healing.
Mhm.
With the Reiki clients, I usually have a little deeper conversation to find out exactly what they're asking for. Like, what is it? Why do you want Reiki? And why not shamanic healing? Because
Mhm.
I'll tell them, I do both of these healing modalities. And so I usually, if they're wanting Reiki, I usually ask what exactly they want to change or shift. Because if it's just, I need stress relief, I'm super stressed, I can't relax,
Mhm.
I want to just be able to go into a meditative stupor and then it's Reiki
Right.
because it's profoundly relaxing. And things do shift oftentimes with Reiki. But if they are feeling like, using sentences like, "I don't feel like I'm all here," or "I've got this pain and it just won't go away," and there's nothing wrong. The doctors tell me I don't have an
Mhm.
injury. There's nothing physically wrong. Or, I'm having bad luck.
Mhm.
Then I'll say, "Well, have you considered shamanism? Let's talk about, the difference." And then once that happens, then oftentimes I will do a quick, like right in front of them journey to
Hmm.
see if that is indeed what is needed. Um, but yeah, I usually have a conversation that goes like that.
Yep. It's very similar to how I sometimes, when people come to me for healing touch, which is another energy modality or core
Hmm.
shamanism, and they've had both with me, there's a conversation, oftentimes a little journey to determine what's needed. So I would agree that that's, it's keeping the client in the loop, but you're also keeping the compassion helping spirits who help with that work in the loop too. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And also, of course, I left out that it's informed consent. I tell them
Absolutely.
I'm working, although even with Reiki, I'm working with helping spirits.
Hmm.
And so, uh, whether I'm doing Reiki or shamanism, I tell them I'm working with helping spirits. And do I have your permission to do that? So, either way, they need to know.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I was never really taught as a Reiki practitioner, that um, I tell my Reiki students when I teach Reiki, is that informed consent. It's not only energy that you're working with. And
Right.
I was never taught to mention my Reiki guides, but I do
Hmm.
since being trained by the foundation.
Yeah. Thank you for that distinction. It's very important. And I'd like to go a little bit further into that. What would you say, and again, this may be a client asking you or a student asking you, what's the difference between working with energy and working with power?
Hmm. They both have they both have intelligence,
Hmm.
but it's different intelligence. Energy is coming from universal energy, God energy, or divine energy, however you want to describe it, um, whatever your word is. Power is coming from specific spirits. So the spirits work with us as a practitioner,
Hmm.
and the power comes through us, but it's not ours. It's a specific spirit's power that you're working with. With Reiki, it's universal life energy that's coming through the practitioner. It's I f- I feel like you can direct both, but it's much easier to direct power because you're literally having a conversation with the spirit while you're working
True.
with them. They're both heart knowing practices.
Hmm.
They are both coming from a place of compassion. In Reiki, you don't necessarily remove what doesn't belong and restore what does belong the way that you do in shamanism,
Hmm.
although there are Reiki practitioners that do extraction, which is kind of scary to me to think about doing an extraction not merged with a helping spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are vastly different, yet some of the senses, the knowing, how you may feel things, taste, smell, know, all those clairs, those senses that are developed, sensing energy,
Hmm.
those have been just getting practiced up for sensing power.
Exactly.
They are different, but those same sensory modalities are utilized.
Yeah, you're using the same muscles.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And so you
definitely.
so you brought up a little bit about your heritage. Can you tell us a little bit about your cultural and ethnic heritage and those influences and how that has, intertwined with your shamanic work, if it has?
So, my dad's side of the family came from Sicily quite recently, and my mom's side of the family came from Finland by way of Scotland.
Ah.
Um, my On my mom's side, my great-grandmother was a diviner. She would read tea leaves for people mostly. That was her her main modality. Um, I don't know a lot about my, dad's side as far as the healing, uh, who the healers were in the family,
Mhm.
because I really only knew my grandparents and they never learned to speak English.
Okay.
My grandfather died when I was a baby. My grandmother never learned to speak English, and she was devoutly Catholic. I think that if she hadn't married, she would have been in a convent.
Okay.
Um, the Blessed Mother was a huge influence for her, and I after receiving all of this training and looking back on my childhood, I would say that the Blessed Mother was probably one of her helping spirits.
Mhm. And
Um,
has she become one of yours too? Have you been working with her?
I don't generally share who my spirits are,
That's fair.
but, yeah, looking back, I would say that there was more to it,
Mhm.
that I think that there was a mysticism in her practice. Um, yeah, and it's interesting because later, I'd say maybe 4 years ago, I did my DNA, and that's how I learned about the Finnish aspect and how they migrated down to Scotland,
Uh-huh.
and I was kinda blown away. I mean, this is probably really far back in the generationally, but they were originally from Somaliland, so that's I think
So
that
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 that may go way back then.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Well, thank you for sharing that. Just it is so interesting to think about. Um, there are so many of us have healers in our distant past that we
mhm,
have no record of, yet sometimes those ancestors are the ones who show up to help. Sometimes it's the same helping spirits that you find out
yeah,
later that they had worked with,
mhm,
and yes, most definitely in Catholic mysticism with contemplative prayer, there's some really beautiful practices that are that direct revelation or direct connection. So
mhm,
think that's just wonderful that that's, kind of within your DNA if you think about
yeah.
it.
Well, it's interesting because we don't think of Europeans as shamanic
Right.
because it was wiped out so much longer ago,
Mhm.
um, and so it it's comforting in a way to know that, yes, we were all shamanic cultures worldwide at one point, at
Mhm.
some point in history.
And it's so nice to know that in core shamanism, the techniques that we're using, most of our ancestors did most of these things mostly the same. There
Yeah,
might be some tiny differences that were a people specific technique, but otherwise mostly the same.
mhm, yeah, that's
So
comforting,
it is. We're just reconnecting with our roots. No need to appropriate.
yeah. And the other beautiful thing about core shamanism is once you learn these basic methods, the spirits teach you so
Oh,
much.
yes. So
You know, I
much.
I always have someone ask, the question always comes up, "Well, what about ceremony?" And it's just ask your helping spirits.
Mhm.
They'll
They'll
give
show
you a
you.
ceremony. They'll show you how,
Mhm.
and it will hold power for you.
And that's what matters because whoever you're assisting in this ceremony or acknowledging in this ceremony or assisting in the departure or the wedding or the baptism or wherever it might be, whatever type of ceremony it is, it has power for those involved.
Mhm. 'Cause it's not taken from someone else and just
Exactly.
acted out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit, Antoinette, and
Okay.
talk a little bit about the way of the shaman. So many instructors will say that this is their favorite class to teach. What do you find rewarding about teaching this course?
It's my favorite also. I just love teaching that workshop. I think what I love watching people's minds get blown. In a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have a harder time than others, but I've never had anyone leave without something that they
Yes.
resonated with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it was hard to journey, or maybe it was hard to work with the rock, or maybe it was hard to, you know, find a power animal for someone. But there's always something that they resonate with that they can go home and work with. And the other thing is helping people understand that all of your senses are involved in this, but that doesn't mean they will all be active,
Right.
because people expect to see a movie
Mm-hmm.
and some people don't see anything at all. And so helping them to use their heart instead of their mind to sense what they're experiencing in the journey is
And to trust that.
and to trust it. But trust, I mean, I can remember having trust issues as late as being in the 3-year program. I think that's an ongoing human
Mm-hmm.
experience. But yeah, maybe questioning it less.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I mean, one of the things about this workshop that I enjoy so much is, um, sometimes a student will be like, I know the spirits are real now. They'll have this, little lightning bolt or light bulb go
Yeah.
off above them. And others will be, I think I finally got there, but I'm not sure. Then they perfectly describe getting to the upper world or lower world and
Yeah.
having a beautiful experience. Sometimes you just have to ask them, I just got this little glimpse and then the drum changed and I came back.
Right.
And so you ask the question, how did it feel in your heart?
Yes, that's what I ask.
And they're just like, oh, it felt completely like I can't even describe it in words. It felt so good.
Yeah.
I think you made it.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
reassurance. Got to keep practicing, but you're getting there.
And teaching them how to build the muscles.
Yes.
Like, for
Yes.
example, they'll be like, well, I got there, but everything was black. Okay, what did you sense? Well, I don't know if I made it up. Okay, what is it that you think you might have made up? Well, I think that there was a bear. And so I'll say, okay, imagine that you are a blind person who used to be sighted. And you've seen a bear before when you had sight. So if you sensed that there was a bear there, allow yourself to fill in the blank and remember what it looks like. And pretty soon more of their senses start to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what a bear smelled like when you went to the zoo? Fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
You know, allow yourself to do that.
Great
Yeah.
guidance. So when people are telling you in class, how can I tell I'm not making it up? So you're helping them to sort of fill in, but they're also fearful that their conscious mind or their imagination has just created the whole thing. How do you help them through that? How do I tell that I'm not making it up?
It's a lot that is a lot easier to do during shamanic counseling, but that's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One, you ask them how it felt in their heart. Two, was it surprising?
Yes.
Was it like, is it something you always think about? How do you know, that you didn't make it up? when you do it again, see if something new happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you just have to trust. You have to shut down the monkey brain. You really have to trust. Trust is big. And, to be honest, you don't know if you made it up in the beginning.
Right.
So
You have
you
to
have to
start somewhere.
you got to keep doing it. At the very least, was it helpful? Even if you made it up, was it helpful?
And sort of following that with the question of how do I know the spirits are real? That gets asked a lot as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel that?
Yeah. Well, okay, first of all, I'm not a guru, so I'm not going to tell you that the spirits are real and
Good.
ask you to believe me. That's not my job here. So how do you know the spirits are real? You don't know until you know. There's no way for me to tell you that they're real because then I would be asking you to believe me. So the only thing that you can do is continue to journey and continue to have experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And one day you're going to go, wow, this is real. There's no way I could have made this up. And the spirits start to show you serendipities. You're given about a power animal, and suddenly you're seeing that power animal everywhere you go. Y- It's a hawk, for example. You just see a hawk fly overhead. Oh, well, those fly overhead all the time. Oh, wait, same day, there's one on the side of a bus going by. Wait a minute, there's a billboard. What? There's a hawk on this bottle of whatever I just bought? Why am I suddenly seeing hawks everywhere? That's a way of communicating with you. The question is, are you listening or paying
Right.
attention? And over time, you have enough serendipities that you realize, this is real.
So true. I remember when after I had visited my stepmother, kind of preparing my dad and her for her soon departure from the earthly plane. And as we were leaving, and I had learned some things about my dad who could sense energy unbeknownst to me. I had shown them how to do a pain siphon or pain drain, and he could sense it, and I was just as shocked as he was. I had no idea. But as I was driving home, I saw a hawk. I kept counting, and by the time I got to 34 hawks, it took me that many. I finally called him up and I said, "You need to put a picture of a hawk up on the bulletin board beside her." And it was the hawk was there to assist with her weeks ahead. It was a fairly short period of time before she passed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just really beautiful counting those hawks and just realizing there was so much support available for her and for him
And the
in the
fact that
remaining
you
time.
even knew to count them,
There was
like if
something
you
about
weren't,
it.
or if they weren't really trying to get your attention, you wouldn't have even noticed.
Right. Yeah. It was a beautiful thing to help.
We talk a
So,
lot about noticing in the
yes.
basic. I call it the noticing practice. That's just my word for it. But we start with the soul song. Notice how you feel before and after. How do
Yeah.
you feel before and after calling in the spirits? How how do you feel before and after dancing your animal? How do you feel before and after a journey?
Mhm. Just continuing to notice what's different, what's the
Mhm.
same, what's stronger, what has been
Yeah.
let go of potentially too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've brought up Harner shamanic counseling just briefly earlier. And
Mhm.
if a student who has never taken either one, Harner shamanic counseling or the way of the shaman, and they're trying to decide what should I take first? What would be better for me? They're very different. Yeah, you're learning how to journey in both, but
Mhm.
they're different, different style, different practice. How would you support them in making a decision like that?
That is always, that actually comes up a lot in my private practice.
Okay.
Part of it is finance. It's actually more cost effective to do the workshop in 2 days and learn how to do the upper and lower world journeys and how to formulate a question.
Mhm.
Um, but it also depends on how comfortable the person is in a group setting because
Right.
there is sharing that goes on. You do share with a partner and people share in the group. And so if they're not comfortable with that, it could also be that they think, I say they think because a lot of times they change their mind, that they only want to learn to journey and they're never going to want to take another workshop. So it doesn't matter if they take the basic, because as you know, the basic is the workshop you have to take in order to take any other workshop. But if that's not part of their plan, they just want to be able to journey, meet a spirit, and have a spirit for their personal um, spiritual practice, then Harner Shamanic counseling could be the way to go. And also the other consideration is, does this person have a whole entire weekend to dedicate to a workshop?
Right. Due to childcare and other responsibilities. Yeah.
Yeah. If not, Harner Shamanic counseling might be the way to go because it's just 2 hours. We're taught to do it at once a week, 5 sessions once a week in a row, but I usually do it every other week. Just our economy
Mhm.
to make it more accessible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. One of the fun things about Hunter shamanic counseling is the journeys are longer, some of them at
Mhm.
least.
Yeah.
And the beauty of taking the Way of the Shaman workshop is of course afterward you can do longer journeys on your own if you feel like the journey is just not quite long enough or I think I would have gone a lot farther. You'll have that opportunity to listen to
Right.
the downloads free from the foundation and journey on your own and go as long as
Mhm.
you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah.
S So one of the fundamentals of either Harness Shamanic Counseling or Way of the Shaman is learning to journey to compassionate realms. What does that mean? And how does someone know that they're in the compassionate realms? We have alluded to that a little bit earlier, but what does
Yeah.
this mean, compassionate realms?
I always start with where we live. We live on planet Earth in what we call ordinary reality, middle world. Like that's our language that we use.
Right.
And how does it feel to be here? I mean, we all have days where it feels ecstatic, maybe if we're lucky,
Mhm.
but it's stressful to be here. And so how do you know you're in a compassionate realm? You don't feel any of that. It feels like unconditional love. It feels like a place you don't really want to leave, which is why we actually have people write notes uh, you know, on for certain journeys. We write
And they're coming
notes
back.
making a promise to come back because these realms are so beautiful. It's how do you feel in your heart? How does your body changes? You feel less pain and you feel less stress in your body. These places are beautiful. They're unimaginably beautiful.
And so the point of going to these compassionate realms can be several, right? I mean, you can be going there to meet a spirit, meet a teacher spirit, an animal spirit to gain wisdom, to gain healing, to
Mhm.
gain next steps of how to help someone, right? There's all
Mhm.
sorts of things that can be gained from visiting these realms. Obviously, you don't go there to stay. You go there to visit and then you
Mhm.
return and bring that work to the middle world where we live to be able to do that healing or provide that information if it was a divinatory journey to the person that is your partner in class or your client if you have a practice.
Mhm.
So it's really a beautiful experience to learn how to get there, learn how to know
Yeah.
you're there, know in your heart, know in your body you're there, and return safely,
Yep.
ethically.
That's exactly right. No, clients will say, "Well, I'm not sure if I made it there because it didn't feel good." Try it again. Go
Hmm.
further. What was your departure point? What did you choose? A lot of times that's the problem, is their choice of departure point. I once had a student, this was a shamanic counseling student, who had been to Machu Picchu, and she decided to use Machu Picchu as her departure point for upper world. But she
Hmm.
didn't depart from the top because she had never
Oh,
been to the top. And she kept saying, "Yeah, it's really weird. There's these people cooking on fires, and, you know, it still looks like Machu Picchu." And so we had to find another departure point for her because she couldn't get out of middle world.
yeah.
It wasn't high enough.
And sometimes people will choose departure points that, like, I loved that tree in grandma's backyard, but everything at grandma's house was full of drama. There was a lot of trauma related to being anywhere near the home and the people who inhabited that home. So even that
Mhm.
tree became not quite the right place as a
Right.
departure point.
Yeah.
So choosing
Or
somewhere.
people that are taught in other workshops to use a departure point that's imaginary,
Right, right.
which is very problematic. It needs to be grounded in ordinary reality so that, because the further you go in your practice and your cosmology gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you need a place to come back to that is solidly grounded here so that all of you
Absolutely.
comes back.
Yeah, very serious and a very serious part of that work. Thank you
Mhm.
for that. And so, after a student has completed the way of the shaman workshop, they've come for the whole weekend, they've
Mhm.
learned to journey to the upper world and lower world, they've learned to do object divination with a rock, they've learned how to do power animal retrieval, they've received a power animal, they've checked all the boxes, done everything in that course.
Mhm.
What should they do after this course?
Practice, journey, find a drum circle, or I call them journey circles, um to practice journeying. I mean, that's the most important thing. Don't go to the workshop and then never do this again. Do it again. Connect with someone in the workshop that you can call, that maybe you can work together, if not in person, over Zoom,
Hmm.
to practice. Practice doing divination for your family members. Do power animal retrievals for people. That is a profoundly powerful healing. And people think that it's just a power animal retrieval. You learn it in the first workshop. They, some people think it's kind of funny,
Hmm.
but it's not.
It's
Your power
powerful and
animal,
foundational.
it's foundational, and you can survive with one power animal and get a lot done in your life, knowing that you have this spirit that is there for you, for your spiritual power, to shore up your spiritual immune system.
That's right.
You know, put a picture of, like you said, the hawk, put a
Hmm.
picture of the hawk on the bulletin board. Put a picture of your power animal on your refrigerator as a reminder. I mean, isn't that why we put statues of Buddhas and Jesus and Blessed Mothers and photos of, Muhammad on the wall as a reminder.
Mhm.
Do it with your power animal.
Yeah, dance your power animal, so you're gifting them the physicality, they're gifting you some of their power, so you can
Mhm.
really build that relationship, learn from them in that merged state. It's
Do your
fantastic.
soul song.
Yes, absolutely.
And we soul song doesn't necessarily have to be vocalizing, although that's what we do in the workshops is
Mhm.
we that's the universal personal power building practice, empowering your own soul and calling your own soul into your body. But maybe your soul song is that 10-mile run you do in the morning, or maybe it's hiking, or maybe it's writing, or maybe it's dance.
Mhm.
Whatever makes your soul sing, do it every
That's it.
day. It's not
Yeah.
a privilege to do those things. It's a necessity to maintain the health of your soul.
Really helps maintain that vitality, shores up any vulnerabilities to
Mhm.
uh, spiritual illness, to
Mhm.
possession illness, to physical illness.
Yeah, it's really important. Even before I started practicing shamanism, even in my bodywork practice, I would tell people, "What are you doing that feeds you?
Hmm.
You just going to work and taking care of your family, but what are you doing that feeds you? What are you gonna do? What do you do when your family's not there and work's not there?" And that, sadly, is a very difficult question for many people.
Yeah. So this is something that people can easily do, incorporate. Doesn't take very long, a few minutes a day, just to help build that relationship with your own soul, build that relationship with a teacher or power animal, or
Mhm.
possibly several over time, really helping to shore things up.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I've got a fun question for you, Antoinette, and this
Okay,
is
goody.
so your own personal biases can shine through here. What do you feel is the best class to take after the Way of the Shaman?
It really depends on it it really depends on where you wanna take your shamanic practice, but
Mhm.
if you're not immediately heading down a healing track, I would say spirits of nature, um, because in Way of the Shaman, you're learning how to interact with non-ordinary reality spirits in upper and lower world. In spirits of nature, you're learning how to interact with the beautiful spirits that reside on planet Earth.
Mhm.
And I think that that sort of completes I think the next one after that, even though whether you're gonna go down the healing track or not, would be Dying and Beyond,
Yeah.
because then you're also learning about middle world spirits and the interworlds, and it's a whole other aspect of what is here, and much deeper exploration in upper and lower world.
Mm. And learning how to be of service to the departed, where you would never
Yeah,
be hanging out a shingle. This is not something people do and charge money. It's not about that. It's about being able to assist the
yeah,
suffering beings.
yeah, yes, definitely. That's a I that's my feeling.
Hmm.
I
Well, thank
mean,
you for that.
yeah, because I feel like those 3 together, you're really getting a good introduction to the entire cosmology.
That's true. And for those who are taking online courses, Shamanic Worldview gives you a little
Mhm.
taste of uh, the spirits in the middle world. It's not nearly as big of a taste as spirits of nature, but it does give you a taste, and it's a very
Yeah,
useful workshop for those who can't travel.
it really is. I think even that's a great one to take because that really is the only online workshop that we don't do any of those journeys in in the
No,
in-person ones either.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Totally separate,
yeah.
and it's
I
a lot of
really
fun.
it is fun. I love the worldview workshop. It's a fun one to teach too.
It really is. So as we're wrapping up here, Antoinette, um, you've shared some really interesting views on the differences and similarities between energy work and working with power, working with spirits, your experiences personally and how shamanism found you. You've shared some really great details about how you help people make decisions with regard to the way of the shaman and some of the beautiful things that we do in the way of the shaman workshop. So I appreciate this and thank you greatly. For those who are listening, if you'd like to learn more about Antoinette's practice or working with Antoinette and her workshops, or if any of the other workshops besides Way of the Shaman, just check us out at shamanism.org. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.